What's up, guys, and welcome to the third installment of whatever this is about to become. It's gotten off to a bit of a rocky start. This is not how I actually anticipated as far as filming and schedule, as far as releasing of these. But as I mentioned in the last one, had a minor setback, trying something new, kind of flaring up some symptoms that are a little different than I dealt with in the past, along the same lines in regards to like elevated heart rate, chest tightness, slight difficulty breathing, just when those issues flare up, those types of things. But it was a different feeling, and I wasn't really going to dive into that too deep in like a skim through. I was going to kind of talk about it a little more in depth because I did plan on continuing doing what I was doing after I figured things out. But I don't at this point, so I'm just going to kind of touch on it and then keep moving forward. So where I'm at in this journey, I've done a lot overcoming a lot of the symptoms that I dealt with as I started with this, Barrett's esophagus diagnosis. The last thing to come back was really my energy levels, my mood. Not to say I'm, in a bad mood all the time, but I definitely struggle with anxiety, and I guess energy levels are what really keep me kind of feeling like a shell of myself a lot of the time. And I just don't feel like I'm able to give my best to others, my family especially. Um, just it's very difficult to put into words what I mean by this. But when you're low energy all the time, like just running around with a toddler, you're not there. You're doing what you can, but I would kind of be letting him do his thing, and I just didn't have the energy to keep up. So what I ended up researching and doing some blood work for was actually peptides and hormone replacement therapy. All my labs typically come back very good. So I'm metabolically very healthy, no nutrient deficiencies. Everything looks solid. I have always had borderline low testosterone, and that's probably the results of constant inflammation, dealing with everything that I've been dealing with, the Barrett's history. Just inflammation will suppress your testosterone levels. So borderline low overall testosterone, total testosterone, pretty low free testosterone. To give you guys some numbers, I typically fluctuate between like low 500s, and my last test was actually like a 470, I want to say, for total testosterone, which is probably like the average of a 55-year-old man. Normal, what they give you for normal, it falls within that normal range, but that's normal is not optimal, as we've talked about. My free testosterone was an 11.5, and ideally we want that over 20. So we could really double that number and still be not at a high place, but in a good place, a normal place. So I did choose to move forward with testosterone as well as a couple peptides. So BPC 157, as well as CJC 1295 and ipamorelin. That's a combined peptide. And with the testosterone, I was also taking HCG because we are still trying to have kids. So that just keeps your testes that produce testosterone and, keeps sperm motility and quality and volume up with taking that. Because if you take testosterone in itself, your body takes that as an external source, and it doesn't need to do it on its own anymore. So that can lead to a bunch of other things going on. So for our fertility journey, I did also stack HCG to maintain fertility with that. The ipamorelin CJC 1295, that is something that boosts human growth hormone a little bit more naturally, so communicates with your pituitary gland. For those of you not familiar, peptides are basically these messengers within your body. So your body, you consume them, your body creates them. They basically send a message to a certain part of your body, and it tells that part of the body to do a certain function. So it's also got a negative feedback loop. So rather than just doing straight up HGH injections where you can get it to a very high level with no negative feedback loop, so it kind of shuts down things within your body. This is something where it'll produce it on its own, and if it gets too high, it just kind of regulates and says, hey, this is where we want to be, but it just keeps things at an optimal level. It also improves recovery, muscle growth, overall tone, muscle, leanness, helps with losing fat, and just getting to deeper levels of sleep. So something that was synergistic with the TRT, something that was just going to help, elevate energy levels, elevate mood, recovery, boost, things along those lines. So I did end up doing that stack. The BPC 157 was actually separate from those. It's just something that I've looked into as far as the ability to heal. People will use that as an injection for acute injuries, but if you take that as an oral capsule, it's generally good for, overall systemic healing, particularly for, your digestive health, your digestive tract. So that was something that interested me. So I did add that to the stack. But the side effects that I explained in the last episode, they're not common, but leave it to me to find them. And that was something where I said, you know what, this isn't something that I'm ready for. I don't want to continue to try to work through this. I probably could have pushed through and let everything settle back down and, eased back in a little bit better. But I went back to square one. That was not something I wanted to deal with. It reminded me of my initial history with once I was initially diagnosed with Barrett's and those symptoms. That was just not something I wanted to go through again in any capacity. So I did decide to nix that and go back to the basics, just really honing in on my routine. Right now, I'm big on my morning walk, so getting that morning light in, meditation, daily non-negotiable, getting my lifts in when I'm feeling well. Like I said, I've been under the weather. Between that and then actually getting a little bit sick, it's just been a tricky balance. So it's always about listening to your body and figuring out what you can recover from. But man, I know it can be confusing sometimes as far as should I push through, should I rest? So that's where I've been at, and you can probably hear it a little bit. It's still in my voice. So I'll take you guys through the routine. I do have surgery tomorrow. That's why I wanted to kind of hop in here and do a quick update. This was a scheduled surgery, so it's a regular endoscopy. I'm hoping they don't find anything. If they do, I assume they're going to do another ablation, which is how they did get rid of the Barrett's back in 2021. So I had surgery every other month via radiofrequency ablation. That is basically they go down there and they burn all the tissue that's been affected with this laser. So they typically wait until you get to higher grade dysplasia, which is actually where I had progressed to. It was trending. So you go from typical Barrett's to low grade dysplasia to high grade dysplasia and then potentially esophageal cancer. So that's kind of the progression as it goes through. The higher the grade of dysplasia, the more likely or the higher the risk of it changing into cancer. So when they see that is when they typically implement the radiofrequency ablation. But just talking with them as I was going through this, it does sound like they are shifting to doing this in earlier stages, because if there's a way to get rid of it earlier, without it actually progressing at all, they are exploring using that a little more freely, which I thought was encouraging, especially for those of you who have just been diagnosed. It's something, worth having a conversation over. It's not a fun surgery. It's not an easy process, especially if you're hitting those bi-monthly as I was. I ended up having 7 surgeries in 14 months, which is tough. So the first week or so, it's soft food only, a lot of liquids, just because there's stuff going on there, whether it's actually still bleeding or whatever. You need recovery time there. So my last surgery did show that it worked. It was clear of Barrett's esophagus, but my fallback is I'm actually having difficulty swallowing now. So I don't know if it's throat motility, if the muscles were affected as they were going through that. But for the past 8 months, pretty much since we started this, if not the whole time, if I don't gulp water, it just sits in the bottom of my throat. So I have to take a sip, take another bite, sip, get it down. If I don't do that, it gets stuck and I have to throw up to get it out. So that's super fun. But I would say the trade-off of not having Barrett's is worth it. So something we can address later on. But anyway, that's the update. Surgery tomorrow. I will start taking you guys through my routine as far as my training, as far as what I do for mental health. We'll go through the sauna, we'll go through the ice plunges, meditation, nutrition, obviously super important. But I just wanted to pop back in here before the holidays, before surgery, and give you guys an update, because I know I wanted to be more consistent with this, but obviously some bumps in the road. So we'll keep moving forward, and I am excited to share this journey with you guys.